want to talk to you about for a few moments today is what to do if the Lord is with you and you don't really understand what's going on. So if you have ever been confused, you have come to the right place. And I want to invite you into a kind of a practice that we see supremely in one character of the entrance of Jesus into our world. As we walk through Advent together, through the Gospel of Luke, we pick this up in chapter 2, verse 16. Now the baby has been born, been laid in the manger. The good news of great joy to all people has been given to the shepherds, and that's to you, and that's to me. And then here's the response. When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about. Let's go and see. Let's investigate. Let's examine. Let's take a look. Let's take action. Let's follow up." That's a really good attitude to have in life. So they hurried off. I'll just note here, we often think about our problem is we hurry too much, and often we do. But in the very first Christmas story, we saw when the angel had come to Mary, she hurried. She could not wait to go see Elizabeth. And now the shepherds hurry. They cannot wait to go check this out. Sometimes hurry is a good thing. So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. I want to give you a couple of statements from Luke's story, and you will notice one word in particular. In the first chapter, when the angel Gabriel comes to Mary and says these words that we keep living with, "Greetings, rejoice, favored one, the Lord is with you," it says that Mary was greatly troubled by these words and pondered what could they mean, and went on to ask Gabriel, "How can this be?" And then in the text that we just read, everybody's amazed at what the shepherds said, but Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. And then at the end of the second chapter of Luke, you might remember the story where Jesus is at the temple and Mary and Joseph going crazy with anxiety because they're looking for him. They can't find him anywhere, and they go there, and Mary says to Jesus, why did you do this to us? Didn't you know we've been anxiously searching? And he said, "Didn't you understand? I got to be in my Father's business." They didn't understand what he was saying. They did not understand what he was saying. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. Now, it's interesting. The Bible does not say of any other character that they treasured or pondered things in their heart, but it says that about Mary 3 times in this space. What's going on? And I will begin with what's not going on, just as you think about what do you do when you're confused, when you're not sure, like with Mary and Joseph, they did not understand what was going on. This is not an expression of Mary being like a scrapbook mom in a Hallmark moment with some herbal tea and a lighted incense candle. It's interesting how often when folks write about this, including just reading about it a lot online, the message that people will take, and often it's written by or inflicted on women, "You must be more quiet. Instead of going out there in a restaurant, talking to everybody or trying to post things, just shut up for a while." The idea, and sometimes people will write, "Mary was quiet." I've read that many, many times. That's not what the text is saying. The contrast in this text, when it talks about Mary treasuring these things in her heart, is not versus the shepherd who spread the news. It's everybody is amazed. So people are quite surprised to hear this message. But Mary goes on simply an immediate emotional or surface level response. And she does these 2 things. She treasures them all up and she ponders them in her heart. And both words are very significant. Mary is not actually a quiet, docile person. She actually kind of pushes back against an angel when she first talks with him. Uh, in a very unexpected way, she takes a long, difficult, dangerous journey and hurries on it to go see Elizabeth so that she can talk together with her. The Magnificat we'll come back to. That's one of the most remarkable utterance in the history of humanity. That's Mary. When she and Joseph go to temple, it's not Joseph that says to Jesus, "What are you doing? Where you been?" It's Mary that does it. We don't get the picture of a quiet, docile, introverted, introspective character when it comes to Mary. Quite the contrary. When it talks about Mary treasuring these things, the idea is to preserve a knowledge, important piece of information, or a memory so that you can have it available for future use. Part of why this is important is human memory is notoriously unreliable. There's all kind of research about this. In one survey, the average person thinks of our memory as working like a video camera. Well over 90% of academicians who do research in the field of memory say, no, it's not like that at all. It's much more like an old man sitting by a campfire telling stories, which may or may not be accurate. Our memories tend to be unreliable, because we expect whole, complete, understandable stories, and so we often fill in the blanks. We have a self-serving bias. We remember voting for winners in elections that we did not vote for. We remember receiving compliments that we did not receive, getting higher grades that we did not get. The first church that I was at, I remember this quite vividly. I would sometimes tell stories about my family, and my wife, if she thought that my memory was not being accurate, she would literally just raise her hand so that everybody would understand her memory of whatever this story was quite different than mine. You ever have arguments with people that you're close to about memory issues? So everybody else is amazed by this, but then they kind of get on with their lives. Mary is the one person who deliberately decides that she will try to store this stuff up, that she will try to gain uh, an accurate recollection of it. Very possibly she wrote it down. Luke says that he's basing his writing on eyewitness testimony. Where do you think he got his material on the beginnings of Jesus' life? And folks who do research around this sort of thing will say the most likely source for this would have been Mary. To use a current historical term, she would have been the primary source, of which Luke becomes a secondary source. What are you treasuring? What are you seeking to remember? I was talking to my wife this morning about a guy that I knew 40-some years ago, where I roomed with him for just a couple months. He was an older guy. He was in his 60s back then. And Nancy asked me, and did he have children? I don't remember if he had children. It's been more than 40 years ago. But one of the things that I admire about Nancy a lot, she'll sometimes say this, when she talks with somebody about their life and their story, she'll say, it's like watching a movie. And she'll want to know those details. What's going on in your life? What about your kids? What are they doing? Where are they happy? Where are they? To treasure, we treasure, we store up, we seek to remember what we care about. And Mary is the one who cares about what matters most. And then the text also says she ponders. And I want to invite you to treasure and to ponder today. What does it mean to ponder? Well, another New Testament theologian, Scott McKnight, writes that pondering is a word that was used of prophets in the Old Testament. When there are events going on in the world and nobody's quite sure, what is God up to? What does this mean? What's the significance of this? How does this fit into a grander story? And they do that, not so that they can be quiet. This is not a little hallmark moment, for Isaiah or Jeremiah or Amos. They're going to come out with some pretty thunderous statements about that. They're doing theological work to try to understand what is God doing in my life, in our life, in the life of God's people, so that we can respond with justice and courage and faith and move forward as partners together with God in this great project. And it's little Mary that's doing that. You look at the Magnificat, what Mary recognizes, she is what one person calls a peasant theologian. Sometimes people think the first theologian in the church or the Christian movement was Paul, and Paul really kind of is the guy who discerned, figured out, or even made up what he thought the significance and message of Jesus was. No. Actually, the first theologian in the church was Mary. And you read the Magnificat, and what she sees primarily are two great truths that remain with us today. One of them is there's something about this life of Jesus. We have this deep longing. Who could I be? What could our world be like? What could the significance of a human life look like? And this man somehow encapsulates it in the way that he dealt with people, in the way that he lived his life, and the way that he understood God, and the way that he talked to people. We see in there somehow the potential for human life. And the first person to recognize, just don't understand it. I can't explain it all, but I have to hold this life steadily before me. And like the star that the Magi saw, it will move me towards something. Mary's the first to see that. And then this theme of the great inversion, the great upside down. And Jesus would make these remarkable statements. One day he's talking to the disciples. What were you guys arguing about on the way? It's Mark 9. And they're silent because what they were arguing about is, I think I'm the greatest. What do you think? And he says, if anybody wants to be the first, they should be the last and the servant of all. Now, this great theme, God is exalting the lowly. God is overturning the sinful, arrogant, prideful, me first, power, money-oriented way of life. The first one to see that so clearly in the New Testament is Mary and the Magnificat. He is remembered, he is honored, his lowly servant. He has brought down the rulers. He has satisfied the hungry with good things. That was the song that she sang to Jesus. That was her gift, and it is with us today. Many years ago, my hometown, Rockford, there was a couple kind of friends of my folks, and not religious people at all. I think one of their kids had been to like a backyard Bible study, something like that, and the mom, Eileen, had never read the Bible before, so they had an old Bible in the house. She got it out, she opened it up, and she saw there was something called the Old Testament, something called the New Testament. She figured the New Testament is kind of the up-to-date, whatever version is that's going on. So she just started reading at midnight in a troubled heart, Matthew and Mark and Luke and John. And when she got to John, she just fell in love with Jesus. There's just something about this life that shines through. And Mary saw it. Her husband, Dick, very successful lawyer, but had a big alcohol problem and ended up being warned by the folks at his firm, one more strike and you're out. And then there was one more strike, he binged. And so he had to go into rehab, and he was told one morning, your assignment today is you got to get up and there's a AA meeting and you got to go to it at 7:00. And his initial response and his pride and arrogance was, go meet with a bunch of drunks at 7 a.m. There's no way I'm going to go meet with a bunch of drunks at 7 a.m. And his sponsor said, oh, not only are you going to do that, you're going to fix coffee for a bunch of drunks at 7 a.m. And he did. And then the next morning. And then he learned just simple acts of serving like that. Oh, this is what life's about. This is who I am. And discovered in humility and service and letting go of that pride and surrender the power to live a life and become a person with Jesus' help that on his own, that's the great inversion. And Mary saw it. Everybody was amazed. Mary treasured. I will focus my life on what matters. I will focus my thoughts, my mind. I will store them up. I will store God's word up in my heart. And then she pondered, God, what does it mean? So now I invite you to do that right now. That's why you tune in. What do you want to treasure today? Where are you grateful? Where did God show up? The Lord is with you. What gift has God given? What moment of joy? What encouragement from a friend? What piece of beauty in the world around you? What wisdom from a book? Thank you, God. Like the shepherds, I praise you and glorify you and tell other people about you. And then what do you want to ponder? Where are you troubled in your life? What do you not understand? What do you not know? What feels confusing or maybe even overwhelming? See, Jesus is there. He is right there. Very often, as Mary found, as the prophets found, he is more deeply there. What do you want to ponder? Not in an obsessive way, not in a rumination way, in a calm, Jesus, let's look at this together way. What are you up to? And then invite him to be with you through this day, the matchless one. Rejoice. The Lord is with you. Treasure and ponder.
Hey, thanks for joining us. My name's Tim. I'm a part of the team here at Become New, and I live in Minnesota, so it's freezing where I am. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future teachings from John as we walk through the Christmas story a few verses at a time. You can also visit our website, becomenew.com, to find more teaching just like this. And if you've got a prayer request, please text it to us so we can pray for you. You can text it to the number 855-888-0444. Thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next time.